I have a RISE analyst with me for the rest of the program who will be giving her thoughts on the ongoing investigation of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk, over an alleged 37.1 billion naira laundered during her tenure. She's the current affairs analyst, Dr. Constance Ikokwu. Thank you so much. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, we started the year together yesterday, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Right. So let's quickly talk about the issue of, whether to allow Nigerians bear arms or not, considering the level of insecurity that Nigeria faces, and Nigerians are the receiving end. Very quickly, talk about that. Where do you stand, especially when you hear from Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja saying, look, allowing Nigerians to carry arms to defend themselves will lead to anarchy. It's enough for them to just give us information and we will, respond as quickly as possible. Well,
the first thing to say is that there is a reason why people arguing for people, Nigerians to bear arms. Mm-hmm. When you examine the issue clearly, you would see that the monopoly of the government to use force has been successfully challenged by all sorts of non-state armed groups, right. Whether you're talking about killer headsmen, insurgents, bandits, armed robbery groups, cult groups, unknown gunmen, communal clashes and all of that. And so when you look at it critically, the inability of the state to manage structural vulnerabilities that lead to, heighten the need to use guns by non-state actors has really shown that the state is fragile and weak. And so in a situation where the state is weak and fragile, people fear for their lives, right. And they literally want to take care of themselves. And it's good that you mentioned the report from the United States of America. I also read that report from, I think it's the Gun Archives, Gun Violence Archives, which says that in 2023, over 40,000 people killed from gun violence. So when they break it down, it's talking about some from suicide, right. And some from mass shootings, and then there are others from unintentional shootings, and then police officer shootings. So this is a developed country in the Western world, and this is happening. And mind you that I think the U.S. is the only country in the developed world. It is an outlier where this is happening. Yeah. And then you come back to Nigeria, which is a developing country with multiple problems, and you want to give people guns. Yeah, constitutionally, you can defend yourself. Right now in the country, it's mostly non-state actors that own these guns and they are using them. And then, of course, some politicians. If everybody begins to carry a weapon, we have to bear in mind that once we open that Pandora box, it will be difficult to walk it back. Right. So these are things that need to be thought through carefully because of the implications and the complications. So you then ask the question, why are we in this situation? I mean, then maybe you begin to tackle the reasons why we are here. We did not arrive here overnight. It's been a gradual decline. So you talk about repressive policies by government, human rights abuses, unequal distribution of resources, inequality, all these things, in a flawed criminal justice system. Yeah. All of them have combined to bring us to where we are. So these are the things we should be looking at and tackling. For any government, not only Nigeria, in the world that faces multiple issues on all fronts, it's not easy at all. But if we do not address them, then we don't have a country. I think that's where we should start, really.
That's where we should start so that we can have a country. Yeah. One of the biggest threats to Nigeria's existence is corruption. Let me just, paint a picture here. Nigerians were once described as fantastically corrupt by none other than former British Prime Minister David Cameron. 16 trillion naira worth of abandoned projects, 11 trillion naira wasted on moribund refineries in 13 years, 37 billion naira allegedly misappropriated in the social intervention programs, 102 billion naira allegedly stolen by former Accountant General of the Federation, etc., etc., etc. It's a long list of corruption cases. Where do we start from?
Very good question.
Why are we where we are?
where do we start?
Where do we start from?
The decline has been gradual, and we haven't done the right things. It's a mix. It's a mix of factors. Inability again of the government to arrest the issues when they are happening. I mean, it shows that the moral bankruptcy is deep. The stories that we have heard, some of the stories are true, some of them have not been investigated, some of them investigations are ongoing. Yeah. So media trial, yes, it's not good, but we have been on this road for a very long time. I think the decadence is something that sickens ordinary Nigerians, but also it's not only government officials. When you begin to look at what individuals do at the post where they work, whether it's a government office or a private office, the individuals themselves take advantage of their employees or their employer rather, and when they're given a small situation or a small opportunity, they abuse it. The question then is, why do people abuse the situations or opportunity that they have been given in the right direction? A lot of times you can explain it away with the fact that poverty levels are high. There are financial difficulties in the country, really. You can explain it in that way. So
yeah, but you could also say...
can I finish? So that means that you have to work on improving living standards in the country. On the other hand, when you talk about politicians, there are people that already have the funds or the money themselves, but when they get to office, they still want to pilfer because there is no consequence for doing those things. So those are the directions that we should be looking at. And
it's almost like a chicken and egg situation. Which one leads to the other? Is it poverty that's leading to corruption? Is it corruption that's leading to poverty? Because when you look at the corruption perception index that's carried out over the years, Nigeria and many poor countries, as a matter of fact, Bangladesh and what have you, have never really made the top echelon of the non-corrupt countries. So there seems to be a link or a nexus between poverty and corruption.
Yes, there is that.
But what's leading to the other?
Yes, there is that, definitely. When people are in very difficult situations, the tendency is for them to bend the rules in order to live. So for instance, you would see police officers. Have you been to the police barracks in Nigeria and see the conditions that human beings live? It's heartbreaking.
It is.
Why would you put people in those housing complexes, in the police barracks, and they come out of there? What kind of human being comes out of that situation every day and you expect him to excel in whatever he does? So you have to address that. You don't just point fingers at people. There are underlying causes and issues that you have to address. And then on the political side, there has become a political culture of misbehavior that people get away with. If people come into politics and today they come with nothing and tomorrow they go away rich and nobody questions them and they get away with it, well, the culture becomes, it's different, and everywhere everybody begins to do it because the other person got away with it. So
why can't I do it?
Why can I not do it? So you have to tackle the culture of stealing, distortion, manipulation, deception in governance. If you do nothing, then the decadence continues.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, not too long ago, quoting him, not necessarily verbatim, said, look, one major way of tackling corruption is to ensure that the rule of law, has its rightful place. That the rule of law should not apply only to the poor, but it should apply to everybody in society. The rule of law is usually the first casualty, whether in government or even in private, life. Is that where we need to start from? Ensure that the rule of law prevails, that people are punished for wrongdoing, so that it's a pointer to the fact that, look, you can't get away with murder.
There is no magic bullet, As I said earlier, the challenges are on multiple fronts, so you have to be tackling it from different directions. Yes, the rule of law is important for a society that wants to be sane. So that means the president and the politicians, the ministers should not be above the law. And I would like to tie this to what the African Union talked about in 2013, because when you talk about prosperity, you need to have peace in order to have prosperity or to make progress. So in 2013, the African Union, recognizing the fact that without peace they cannot have economic development, they came together and reached a decision to work on a theme they called silencing the guns by 2020. And so, you know, they adopted it and started working on it. By 2020, this is 2023, you know, 10 years later, has that worked? Not really, because when you look around the continent, you know, the conflicts continue, whether it's in Nigeria, Cameroon, Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad. There are still ongoing active conflicts. Even Ethiopia had an internal war also in that country. So all those things, you have to have peace, first of all. We have had these issues for so many years. It looks like government after government seems overwhelmed and unable to sort of arrest the situation. We have to do more, because without that, we cannot even talk about economic progress. We're trying to connect poverty now to what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yes, people have to prosper. You have to have a country that lives to a certain standard where you do not have to be bribed in order to do your work. You do not have to be given some kind of gift in order to do your work. You earn an income that is a living wage, that is enough for you to have a decent life.
So would you say, from all indication and the recent events, though still unfolding, and like you said, I mean, this is not a media trial of anyone who's been fingered as you know, having dipped their fingers in the public till. The question is, can Tinubu tame corruption? Let me quote a statement that he made not too long ago. He said, look, I'm going to make corruption, let me just quote it here. I'll make corruption unattractive for judges and other judiciary sector officials. And you might want to say the same should apply to every sector of the Nigerian society. Can he tame corruption? How will he go about it?
That's a big question. Given his record in Lagos State, a lot of people will say that maybe the president doesn't have the capacity to do that, given his own life. I don't know. It is. Do
you really think so? Let me just put this in, because look, you have this Halima Shehu situation going on. The former Sadiya Umar Farouk is being, you know, called to question. From an onlooker, you might want to say it looks like President Tinubu may not have promised too much on the anti-corruption war front, but it seems to be acting in that direction.
It is a good objective to have as a country, because clearly we need to do something about it. So in that case, the EFCC chairman is a new one, is trying to do his job. So if at the end of the day we're able to clean up government, you know, offices, there's so many parastatals and agencies that this is happening across board. If we're able to tackle this problem, then it will be in the interest of the nation, because we'll be better off for it. But again, when it comes to the EFCC, I think the other thing that people look at is the way they do their investigations, and people are talked about in the media. Is there a way to investigate quietly and, you know, complete your investigations, and then the person has his or her day in court, and then if they are found guilty, then they can go to prison. If they need to return some money, then they do that. What happens in a lot of cases is that, you know, everyone is shouting in the media, and we have all these leaks. I know that journalists want scoops, and so they get in there and get some scoops and they publish it. And this is because in most cases there is secrecy in government. You know, the government transactions and dealings are run in secrecy. I guess this also comes from a military history. But at the same time, I think the EFCC should be the one to manage it in such a way that at the end of the day, if you're then found guilty, it is published. In most cases, a lot of these people walk away. They walk away and they don't go to jail. So what was the point of all the screaming and shouting before?
In the first
when
place.
you look at all the former EFCC chairmen that were accused of wrongdoing, any of them in jail? They did not end in jail. So sometimes you are not sure whether these people are rightly or wrongly accused.
Absolutely. Maybe some witch hunt or the other. How do we begin to plug those loopholes that allow for public officers to put their hands in the public till? Because it looks like the checks that should be there, the different, breakers that should be there are not there. That seems to be where the problem is.
Yes, I was reading that story on, is it Halima Shehu?
Yes.
The woman that was
the Social
that was
Investment
fired.
Program Agency.
And she claimed that she moved 30 billion naira to a different account because the current minister, Dr. Betta Edu, wanted to take over the account. And you're asking yourself, how is it easy for one person to make that decision to move that amount of money very easily? It means that if you're able to move 30 billion so easily, you can move 100 billion, 200 billion, hence all the money we hear all the time that disappear. So it's obvious that the checks and balances and the systems are not tight. I remember during the administration of former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, there were some systems that were put in place to check, money going missing from the accounts of governments. I do not know if that is being upheld up till now, but it's obvious from what we are reading that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And this is not rocket science. It's being done all over the world. If you want to do it, it is possible. So we should get going on that.
Let the political will be there. PricewaterhouseCoopers says the loss to GDP from graft in Nigeria will rise to 37% by 2030 if left unchecked. Let's talk about the impact of corruption on Nigeria, not just politically, social, economic wise.
The impact is humongous. I mean, government says it doesn't have enough revenue to fund the budget. It has to borrow a lot of money, and yet every day you read that money is missing here and there. So if you're able to tighten up the system and make sure that people are unable to get their hands on government money, then you have a substantial amount of money in your accounts. I'm talking about PricewaterhouseCoopers. I mean, a lot of these government officials get the money and they go abroad and they deposit them in foreign accounts. The person that is also accepting the money over there, they are part of the problem. And internationally in Africa, I think that's a problem generally when you have African, whether it's presidents, whether it's ministers and other government officials, being able to take money abroad and those countries accept them. They shouldn't be lecturing us about corruption. Actually, in most cases, they work hand in hand with these politicians to help them to get the money abroad, and once you die, the money doesn't return here. And then when eventually you are aware of it and you apply to get the monies back, they have all sorts of lawyers that say, we have to take a percentage, we have to be paid, and at the end of the day, our countries lose. So it's something that needs to be addressed.
It really has to be addressed, but it's curious that no government since 1999 has been able to make a dent in the war against corruption in Nigeria. So the question is, can Tinubu push back on corruption? Dr. Constance Ikokwu, thank you so much for joining me. Well, that's it on this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow. From me, Ngozi Alibu, and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye. Thanks for watching.